What's the first A? Answer. Okay, you're going to answer the question. Sharing nurse, right? Yeah. You're going to answer the question with a claim. If the question asks, what is one cause of such and such? Then you're going to start out part A with one cause of such and such was. Okay, and then you're going to answer it with something that's historically defensible, which means factual, right? You have to have evidence that you can use to back up that claim. How many points is answer with the question with the historical claim? How many points can you get for this first one? 1 point. You just make a claim. Make a claim that is factual. So here, in our example for number 1, evaluate one cause of the Great Schism of 1054. Am I supposed to do every cause of the Great Schism? No. How many am I supposed to do? 1. Am I supposed to do effects of the Great Schism? No. How many am I supposed to do? Or what am I supposed to do? Cause. Okay, so make sure that you read the question and answer it appropriately. For example, in y'all's SAQ, it said an example not listed in the passage. If you talked about Mongol barbarity and cruelty, was that in the passage? Yes, so that cannot answer the question. Are you ever supposed to quote in historical writing? No, no quotes, ever. Okay, so one cause of the Great Schism was. Does this restate and set up a framework for our answer? This is reminding you, hey, what am I supposed to be answering? I'm supposed to be giving one cause of this event. So one cause of the Great Schism was, and then here is our historical claim. Conflict over leadership, church leadership in the Christian faith. Is that a factual historical claim? Yes, there was conflict over who was supposed to be in charge of the Christian church. That did contribute to the Great Schism. Now, is that the only possible answer that we could put? Now, what's another historical claim I could make? Iconoclasm. I could say that one cause of the Great Schism was the conflict over iconoclasm. Would that be just as right, just as correct as the answer I've written down there? Yes. So how many points do we get for making that claim? 1. But that is not the entirety of the SAQ. We have made a claim. Now we need to prove it. We need to prove it. We need to give evidence. Factual evidence, specific evidence. Can we say that there were people that did things that led to some stuff? No. Okay, can we say that there were leaders of this religion and they fought each other? No, because is that specific at all? It's incredibly vague. People did things and stuff that was religious, doesn't tell me anything. Okay, it tells me that you're trying to fluff your answer to make it look like you know what you're talking about. Okay, so the second part of the SAQ, D, describe or define specific facts that support your claim. This is our claim. The Great Schism happened because of conflict over church leadership. We need to provide specific facts that support that. Okay, can that include ID terms? Yes. Can that include proper nouns? Yes. Anything specific there. It can include things that aren't on the ID list, but things that you know could apply, right? But you can't just say that they had one leader and the other had another leader. You should know names, right? Or titles. That can be very helpful. Do you need vocabulary for every single part of the AP exam? Yes. If you get a multiple choice question and it asks you about the long-term effects of the bubonic plague, and you have no idea what that is, are you going to be able to answer the question? No. What if it has a question about the carpanon? If you don't know what it is, are you going to be able to answer the question? No. So vocab applies to multiple choice. What about SAQs? Do you need vocab to answer a short answer question? Yeah, because you need evidence. You need to not only know the causes and effects of the Great Schism, you need to know what the Great Schism was and who were the leaders, what were their titles, how are they chosen. Okay, do you need SFI for the essays? Yes. Are those literally points on the rubric? Absolutely. Listing SFI and then using SFI. Those are two different points that you can get on your essay. So it is critical that you are familiar with the vocab. Yes, dear, do you have a question? Okay. So if I'm going to give SFI that supports the claim of conflict over church leadership, okay, some vocabulary terms that I might use. Should I talk about the Catholics? Yeah, because is that one side of the Great Schism? What was the other side? Eastern Orthodox. Okay, so some SFI. Okay, what was the split? It was between the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox. Where were the Catholics? Yeah, in the Western Roman Empire. Okay, so Western Europe. Where were the Byzantine? Eastern Roman Empire. So Eastern Europe. I haven't answered the question yet. The question wasn't, what were the sides in the Great Schism? The question is, what is the cause of the Great Schism? And we said conflict over church leadership. So we need to know who is the church leadership of the Catholic Church. The Pope. What about the leader of the Byzantine Church? The Patriarch. Now, if I just said for part D, the Catholics had a Pope and the Byzantine Empire had the Patriarch, that's listing SFI that supports the claim, but is it describing or defining that SFI? No. Pretend that your reader has no idea what a Pope is or what a Patriarch is, right? You have to explain it to them. Don't let them fill in the blanks because they can't do that. They can't read your mind. So we can't just say the West had Catholics and the Pope and the East had Orthodoxy and the Patriarch. Now, if you did say that, can I give you partial credit for part D? Yeah, because how many points is part D worth? 2 points. Okay. So if you told me the West had the Pope and the East had the Patriarch, I could give you 1 out of the 2 points. But if you don't use your SFI, just like in the essay, if you just list it but don't use it, you can't get full credit. You have to give SFI and use it to support your answer, that the conflict was over church leadership. Does that make sense so far? So in part D, they wrote, the Catholic Christians in Western Europe followed the Pope, who had ultimate power over the church and access to heaven by possessing the right to excommunicate heretics. So does this show that the Pope is very, very powerful in the church? So you have ultimate authority? Absolutely. Did the Byzantine Empire believe that the Pope had this power? No. Instead, the Byzantine Eastern Orthodox Christians in the East followed the Patriarch, who did not have the ultimate power in the church. Because who picked the Patriarch? The Emperor. Okay, so the Emperor is the ultimate authority. Who's the ultimate authority in the West? The Pope. So does this explain the conflict over church leadership? The Western side had the Pope, the Eastern side had the Patriarch. Now, is this an essay or an SAQ? An SAQ. So do we need to go into the detail of one of the popes back in the 700s excommunicating the Emperor Leo III and blah, blah, blah? No. Okay, that's an essay length answer. This is an SAQ. How many sentences did I write for D? 2. That's right. Is that okay? Yes. So did this answer get part A? They answered with a claim. Did they prove their claim? Yes, they gave SFI proving that the cause was conflict over church leadership. Now, the last A, analyze the historical significance of the event. How many points is this worth? 2 points. Okay, in my class. In my class, it's worth 2 points. So 5 points total for one part of an SAQ. Okay, one part, just part 1. Do you also have part 2 and part 3? So how many sentences should you write at minimum for an SAQ? 9. Do you have to answer part 1? 3 to 4 sentences. Do you have to answer part 2? Do you have to answer part 3? Okay, just like your SAQ had 3 parts, A, B, and C. Did you have to answer A, D, A for each one? Yes, so that's a minimum of 3 sentences per part. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so historical significance. Why do we care? Why was this conflict and their differences, or the cause of this conflict, so significant? The historical significance of this conflict. Do you see how in this A and in this A, I have specifically set up what part I am answering? It asks for one cause, so I write one cause was. It asks for historical significance, so I say the historical significance of this was. Is that good practice? Yeah, it's not pretty, but do you get points for being pretty in your writing? No, no flowery language, just answer the question. So the historical significance of this conflict and split included that these Christian empires, okay, the Western half and the Eastern half, occasionally engaged in military conflicts together based on their beliefs. Were their beliefs a reason that they split? Yes, and yet could they still work together as Christians? Yes, such as when they created an alliance, a military alliance in the Crusades. Hey, is the Crusades, are they historically significant? Absolutely. Who were the Christians fighting in the Crusades? The Muslims, specifically which Turks? The Seljuk Turks. So both of these Christian halves, okay, of the branches of Christianity, were they able to work together against an external threat? Yes, to take back Jerusalem, the Holy Land, from the Muslim Seljuk Turks. But did this mean that they were all buddy friends? No. Did they still think the other side was going to hell? Yeah, HE double hockey sticks. However, each side still did not consider the other to be religiously legitimate as the ultimate Christian faith. Who did the Catholics think were the ultimate Christians? The Catholics, exactly. Who did the Eastern Orthodox Christians believe were the ultimate true Christians? Eastern Orthodoxy, right? Okay, so does this make sense as to why this was historically significant that this split over beliefs occurred? Okay, so 3 to 4 sentences. Okay, this one was actually 5 sentences, but I could have made it into a semicolon if I wanted to. Okay, that gets all 5 points. They answered the question with a claim. They provided a lot of SFI, specific evidence, that specifically answered the question. It didn't go on a tangent. And then it gave the historical significance of this event. Did this kind of help with reviewing how to write an SAQ and the parts and the points? All right, we're about to find out, because now on a sheet of paper, I want y'all to write an answer to question 2. Evaluate one example of cultural diffusion of Byzantine culture outside the Byzantine Empire. So are we talking about Byzantine culture spreading somewhere else? Yes. What are some aspects of culture that we could talk about? Yeah, which is a type of religion. So we could talk about the spread of their religion. Is there any other aspect of culture we could talk about? Language, their Greek language spreading. Okay, is there anything else? Architecture. You could talk about tradition, you could talk about food, but do y'all know anything about Byzantine food? No. So should you write about that for your SAQ? No, it could be factual that Byzantine food culturally diffused into Ethiopia, right? But you don't know anything about that. Do you know a lot about the spread of Byzantine religion and language and architecture? Heck yeah. Do you have to talk about all of these, religion and language and architecture? No, because this is not an essay. So pick one, the one you know the most about, okay? And then talk about how it's spread and or where it's spread. Okay, so go ahead and take a moment to do that. Caitlin, are you ready to share? Yes. All right, so first up, we're gonna do part A. Just answer the question with a claim. So what did you put for part A?
One example of the cultural adaptation of the function was the spread of Eastern Orthodoxy.
A Eastern Orthodoxy into Russia. How many of you wrote about this for your example? Okay, excellent. Is that the only right answer? No, but it is a right answer. Okay, so one example of cultural diffusion of the Byzantine culture beyond the Byzantine Empire was the spread of the Byzantine religion of Eastern Orthodoxy into Russia. Does that get the point for making a claim? Yes, she made a claim. Now she has to describe and define. You have to prove it. So what evidence do you have that Eastern Orthodoxy spread from the Byzantine Empire into Russia?
The Byzantine Empire created an alliance with the Northern East due to the fact that the Byzantine already had many enemies, and an alliance with Russia prevented potential political attacks. One way that Eastern Orthodoxy spread to Russia was the marriage of Vladimir and the Byzantine Emperor's sister, who was an Eastern Orthodox.
Exactly right. Okay, so I was counting how many pieces of specific factual evidence she gave, and I counted at least 4, right? Is that enough for SFI that supports the claim? Yes, she said that Eastern Orthodoxy went from the Byzantine Empire into the Kievan Rus because the Byzantines wanted to make friends. They wanted allies. Did they cement that alliance with a marriage? Now, how does that relate to religion? Because they converted, right? Is that what you said, baby? Okay, he converted from Russian paganism, the Norse religion, to the Byzantine Empire's religion. Because who did he marry? A Byzantine royal family member. And it would make sense that if they're a part of the Byzantine royal family, that they practice what religion? Eastern Orthodoxy. So did she give SFI backing up her claim? Now, is that the only way to back up your claim that religion spread to Russia? Now, what other example or SFI could you give to support that claim? Did it only spread through marriage? How else did it spread? Missionaries, do you have specifics about that? Okay, what are they? Cyril the missionary, exactly right. Did Cyril the missionary purposely go to the Kievan Rus to proselytize? What religion was he spreading? Was that also an example of the Byzantine Empire trying to make friends with the Kievan Rus? Absolutely. They were trying to link with them culturally. Would either of those examples be perfectly fine? Yes. I do like the marriage one, though, because it's very uncommon that students mention that. Okay. Now, the last part, last 2 points. Tell me why. Tell me why. This event was historically significant. Why do we care that the Kievan Rus became Eastern Orthodox?
The cultural diffusion of Eastern Orthodoxy into Russia was historically significant because it led to Russia continuing.
Okay, so the historical significance of the spread of the Byzantine religion into the Kievan Rus was that it led to the continuance of Greco-Roman culture. Okay, do you have to explain that a little bit further? Yes, so you hadn't mentioned before that the Byzantine Empire was a continuation of the Roman Empire. Okay, so you have to be able to explain that jump because the reader can't read minds. They can't fill in those blanks, right? So if we were going to tailor it to your example, we might say the historical significance of this was that after Russia overthrew their Mongol overlords in 1462, the Byzantine Empire had already fallen. However, the Byzantine culture was continued by the Russians. Okay, does that create a more clear line of cause and effect? Yeah, they got their religion from the Byzantine Empire. They were super connected to the Byzantine Empire, but then the Mongols came, conquered them. By the time they get out from under the Mongols, is there a Byzantine Empire anymore? No. Okay, did we just cover that? Was that yesterday? No, that wasn't yesterday. Did we just cover that when we started Russia? Yeah, with context, Batu Khan and the Golden Horde. Does that make sense as to why that would be historically significant? Yes. Is that the only way to answer historical significance? No. Like, for instance, if Buchanan wanted to talk about how the fall of Constantinople in 1453 meant that the Russian czars claimed Roman heritage in the city of Moscow, okay, as a continuation. That could have been a way to make that connection, but you have to be explicit. You can't assume that the reader knows what you're talking about. They have no idea what's going on. Are we good on that?